Steak on the grill is a big favorite for those during the summertime, but often forgotten during the colder months. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make a pan-seared steak that can be enjoyed year-round. The most important step in this process is preparing the steak. The first thing we need to do is rest the steak until it reaches room temperature. If the center of the steak is still cold, you're going to have one tough steak. Remember, a refrigerated steak takes about half an hour to reach room temperature. So while we wait for the steak to rest, let's go over some of the ingredients we're going to be using: extra virgin olive oil, fresh ground sea salt, fresh ground pepper, some fresh ground garlic, and this is optional, but you can add some Cajun seasoning for some extra spice and flavor. We're also going to need a meat thermometer to make sure our steak gets to the optimum temperature. Today we're going to be using an electric stove, so we're going to need to set the temperature on high to make sure our pan is really hot. If you happen to be using a gas stove that puts out more heat, be sure to set your temperature to medium-high. By now the steak should be at room temperature. The first thing we're going to do is salt the steak. You're going to want a nice even coat on both sides of the steak. Next is the pepper and the garlic. Be sure to add a bit more seasoning than you want because about 30% of it is going to fall off when we cook it. Here is when you would add the Cajun seasoning if you would like, but keep in mind this is just optional. Now that the pan is good and hot, it's time to add the olive oil. You're just going to add enough to cover the bottom of the pan. Any more than that will simply boil the steak. Cooking time will differ depending on the quality and thickness of the steak. Ours is about a half an inch thick, so we're going to want to cook it for 2 to 3 minutes on each side. Now it's time to add the steak. Be careful while setting the steak into the pan in order to prevent some of that hot oil from splashing back on you. You may use oven mitts for this part if you wish. It's been about 2 minutes. Let's check the steak. You're going to look for some good caramelizing and browning on the steak. This side looks done, so let's flip it over and let the other side cook. Now that we've let the other side cook, let's check the core temperature of the steak to make sure it's done. A temperature of about 135 degrees Fahrenheit is the optimal temp for a medium rare steak. Keep in mind, once you take the steak off the pan, the steak's temperature is going to continue to rise by about 5 degrees. So let's go over the steps one more time before we can really enjoy the steak. First, we let the meat come to room temperature. Then we seasoned it. Next, we got the pan and stove ready for cooking once the pan was hot. We added olive oil and then cooked the steak on each side for about 2 minutes, then checked the core temperature. All that's left now is to serve and enjoy.